Happy Saturday, everybody. How y'all doing today? Hopefully, you are doing well. Hopefully, your week went well and you are ready to enjoy the weekend. I know I am. I don't know if you can see it in my face, but I am a little bit tired. I haven't slept yet today and I worked last night. So, just been keeping myself busy, and I know I'll probably crash around 7 p.m. or so, maybe 8. I might make it till 8 tonight. We'll see. But welcome back. I know it's been a few weeks since my last post. Forgive me. Last weekend I was out of town. Actually, last week and through the weekend I was out of town. I went to go visit my newly born niece last Tuesday, and I came back this past Sunday. And it was cool. It was really cool getting to see her up close and personal. And even though most of the time she was feeding and or sleeping, it's all good. It was nice to see her in person. She looks just like my sister, and so it's a really cool moment that I was able to be a part of while I was home. And I was also able to see friends, and my dad happened to be in town, so that was cool. For those of you who don't know, my dad actually lives in Haiti most of the year, but he visits Miami from time to time. He still has, business dealings in Miami and other things that need to be tended to. Like he has property in Miami as well, so he comes back, a few times a year at least. But this time he got stuck, so that was good for me because I got to see him. I got to see him a couple times while I was down there, so that was awesome. For those of you who also don't know, which is probably most of you, my parents divorced, I want to say officially last year, but they've been separated for a long time before that. So my dad lives in his own place, and my mom lives in her own space. So I see him a few times if I'm in town and he's in town, because I usually stay with my mom. So yeah, that's how that turns out. But we all still have a pretty good relationship. Not pretty good. We have a good relationship. Like, honestly, my parents and I, and also with my sister too, like we didn't really skip a beat once they, separated or went their, and then eventually decided to go their separate ways through the divorce. I feel like, both of us just understood that, they just weren't the best match for one another, and that's okay. Like, I'm happy that they still can have a cordial relationship with one another, and it's nice to see that they're both trying to move on with their lives and do what's best for them. So my sister and I both are really happy about that, and we couldn't ask for anything more. So yeah, it was a really good visit, but it was really hard to record, so I didn't get to record while I was down there. I really had plans to, but I was like, this is not gonna really work, and it didn't. So I'm here now. Yeah. I have a confession to make, y'all. Like, well, first of all, there's a young lady that lives next door, and she passes by from time to time. This has nothing to do with what I was gonna say before, but she just passed by, so it got my attention and it had me thinking about it. Oh, the girl is beautiful, man. Like, she's always smiling. Whatever. Either way, an attractive young lady. She lives in the building next door, and I see her passing from time to time, and I just look and I'm just like, man, if I get to see her up close, I will say something. But when I say building next door, like, she's in the building next door, but where she walks is like probably, I don't know, 25 yards away. And so for me to actually get her attention would be like me having to yell out from my balcony. And that might be kind of weird. I actually tried one time to say, how was she doing? And either she didn't hear me, or she wasn't doing well, or she had no interest in letting me know how she was doing. Because there was a straight no answer that happened, but it's all good. But that's not the confession. The confession is, I told y'all that I was done with painting my cabinets and cabinet doors, and that I was ready to put them on. I might have lied to y'all, and not on purpose. I promise, not on purpose. I thought I was done. I really did. And then I looked over it again, and there were still some cabinet doors that weren't painted as well as they could have been. And I'm finding out too about this paint that it takes it takes some days to really harden, like, and get to its fully cured form. So I thought, like, after a day or two it'd be in its fully cured form, but no, that's not how it works. Especially, I guess, at night too, with the humidity being a little bit higher. I think that affects, the dry time as well. So it took a while for it to really dry the way it's supposed to dry. And before that time period, I thought it just wasn't sticking. And so I was doing like the scratch test. The scratch test is basically you use your fingernail and you scratch the surface of where you just painted, and you see if any of the paint comes off, or if it leaves some kind of mark or something in the paint. And so it was leaving marks, and in a few other instances it might have taken off a little bit of paint. So I think I did the scratch test too early. So no biggie. I'll go back and I'll paint it. And there were other areas too within the cabinets themselves, on the interfaces of the cabinets, that I thought would be covered by the doors. And come to find out, since I got these this new hardware for the doors, that they don't totally cover those parts of the cabinet. And so I had, the cabinets that I just painted that are a light gray, and then I had that light wooden color that was showing, because the doors weren't fitting perfectly right the way they were before I put the new hardware on. So just a lot of things that kind of come about that you don't know or think of, and then you realize it once you get to it. So I'm just kind of learning as I go along. I am not a professional at this at all, but I do appreciate the fact that I'm learning, and I'm learning through my mistakes, and that's making me quicker and better. Like, even today I got to put 2 coats of primer on, and I used a different primer than the one I originally used. And this is a tip for anybody out there who's painting anything. If you can avoid using oil-based paint, avoid it, because it's really messy. In some cases, it doesn't really go on smooth. It doesn't really glide on, and so it kind of, turns out not so great. And then the cleanup afterwards is just, it's a mess. And so if you prefer to have kind of like a quicker, dry time, and also just a quicker process, typically whatever other than oil-based paints will get you there. Shellac-based, which is alcohol-based paint or primer. And me personally, I'm using water-based, because most of the top coats that I got are water-based. And so I figured I'd just buy another primer, and I did. And I was able to put two coats on today. It dried to the touch in 30 minutes, and I was able to recoat it about an hour after applying the first coat. So I'm already really feeling it. It was easy to clean the brushes afterwards, so I was with it. I was all the way with it. So just a tip for you guys, unless you're a professional and you do this, then maybe you use lacquer or something else. But if you're just a DIYer like me, then try using different types of paints and or primers besides oil-based, unless you don't mind the cleanup, which requires mineral spirits and or some other type of solvent. So just keep that in mind. You can't put that down the drain or anything. You have to be very careful in terms of how you clean and also how you dispose of those materials. So just a little tip, I'm saying. All right, in other news, personal news for me, not like, news that's going on in the world. This is about me. I'm trying to let you into my world, okay? And in the process, hopefully, I could learn something about you as well. All right? So I got this in the mail yesterday. It's called My Lab Box, and what it is STD, or also known as STI testing. Some years ago, they changed it from sexually transmitted diseases to sexually transmitted infections. So I guess in some cases they still use diseases, but either way, I'm used to saying STI now. But yeah, it's an at-home kit where uh, you can actually provide urine sample or a urine sample. And in the case of the one that I got the the eight test panel. So that one's gonna require blood as well. So it comes with a little, prickly thing, and you can prick your finger and put the blood on a card, and you send it to the lab, and you send that also with the urine sample to the lab, and they will test it for you and let you know in some days whether you are good to go or not. And I feel like it was important to do it, first of all, because I feel like everybody, if you're sexually active, you should be getting tested regularly. And regularly to me means at least annually, at least once a year. But if you're somebody who engages in maybe, more high risk behavior, like not using protection most of the time or all the time, and having, different partners as well, and then on top of that, also not using protection, then you definitely want to get tested, throughout the year, probably, just to make sure that you know what's going on. Because there are infections and diseases that men specifically can carry that don't show symptoms. And so we can be carrying around a lot of stuff sometimes, sexually transmitted infections or diseases, and we can pass it on to partners, and we have no idea that we're passing it on. So it's very important, especially for men, to get tested and understand if you've got something going on with your body or not. Your sexual health is just as important as any other part of your health. So keep that in mind, and make sure that you're protecting yourself and protecting your partners the best you can. Communicate about sex. Have the conversation, with a new partner in the beginning. Just kind of check in and talk about maybe where you're at in terms of maybe people you've been with recently, if you've engaged in any kind of again, high risk activity. Usually that involves activities with little to no protection. So again, have that conversation with your new partners. It doesn't take long. It might be a little weird or uncomfortable, but both people can appreciate the fact that there's honesty on the table, communication on the table, and there's peace of mind knowing that the decision that you make to move forward with this person sexually is one that you've made based on the information that this person has provided you with. And hopefully that's accurate information. So, just keep that in mind. It's important to be safe when having sex. In all honesty, to me, I can't speak for everybody, but sex feels the best when there's that level of comfort in knowing that it's all good. There's two things that make sex extremely, extremely satisfying for me. One of them is a certain level of comfort where you understand that the person that you're engaging with is on the same wavelength, and on the same in the same place as you are. And the second thing is when it's consensual, when you know that that person wants you just as much as you want them, and they are consenting to both of you engaging in adult sexual behavior. That's, to me, that shit is sexy. I don't know about you, but that turns me on when I know that I'm not alone and wanting to really do some things to that person. So yeah, all right, I'm done preaching, about safe sex and all that. But I'll let you guys know how this test kit comes out. I'll do it on Monday, like I said. Um, I wanted to do it when I was closer to being able to mail it out. I don't want to have the specimen just laying around in the heat until Monday, so I'll just do it on Monday. So, enough about safe sex, consensual sex, mature adult sex. Um, what else we got going on? Oh, so the other day I found out that my company is offering. They have a special name for it, but basically what it is an extended leave of absence, a voluntary extended leave of absence. What that means is um, you can choose either 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months to be off, basically not working for that amount of time, whatever time you choose. And in that time period, you'll still be covered with medical insurance or by medical insurance, and you'll still have, your 401k, and you still have flight benefits as well, as if you still were working. The only drawback is that you're only getting paid 33% of your regular rate of pay. So, when they told me about that the other day, I was ecstatic. I didn't know how it would work, but I knew that one of my biggest concerns about having this condo right here is that I'd like to rent it out most of the month if I can on Airbnb. And in doing that, I would of course need somewhere else to stay. I mean, it's a studio apartment, so it's not like I'm gonna be in here sharing the space with the incoming guest. And so this kind of solves that that question, I guess, of where would I stay during that time period where people are using my space. And what I decided was I can just go back to Miami, stay at home, and work that out for I don't know. I don't know how long I'm gonna choose yet. It's either gonna be 9 months or 12 months. But do that, rent my space out, and in the meantime, work on acquiring another property because I'm already 3 months in to owning this property. I'm 3 months, right? Yeah, April, May, June, July. I'm 3 months in, almost 3 months in. On the 21st or 21st, it'll be 3 months. And so in another 9 months, I'll be eligible to purchase another property as my primary residence. That'll make a year that I've been here. So I'm already planning ahead for that. The reason that the company is even offering this to employees is you may or may not know that with the airlines, a lot of them are struggling to, kind of like stay above water. And airlines typically, what they'll do is they will let go of assets and they'll let go of employees in order to maintain their sustainability. So what that means is they'll do whatever it takes to continue to continue to continue to survive. All right. So in this case, because of the pandemic, it's hit the airlines really hard, and people haven't been flying as much, obviously, and so the load factors are down, and that really affects the bottom line of the company because it is really dependent on close to full or full flights consistently, and that hasn't been happening over the past 3 to 4 months. And so the bailout happened from the government, but that bailout, what it did was it provided assistance for those airlines to be able to pay their employees and not cut anybody before the date of October 1st. And so even with this leave of absence, I would be choosing it no later than August 2nd, but I wouldn't actually go on leave until October 1st, because that's the soonest that they can technically and legally, you know, let people go, you know, or at least they can only pay us, or they can't stop paying us before October 1st. So even if you were let go before that time, or you were what they call furloughed, which is basically an involuntary break from the company, involuntary and indefinite. You know, they don't really have a specific date that they'll call you back, or that they don't even have a guarantee that they will call you back when you're on furlough. So a lot of people, when they're on furlough, they end up, you know, getting other jobs, and just in some cases even changing industries altogether. But but so yeah, even if they were gonna put people on furlough or whatever the case may be, they'd have to give us notice of 60 days before actually putting us on furlough. And the other part of that is that wouldn't be able to happen until October 1st. So I'll be around here at least for the next couple months, the next few months, before, you know, I actually make the move back to Florida for a little bit, and try to work some things out. But that's kind of a big deal for me, you know, like that's gonna really get my real estate investing and property managing going, and put me on. It's gonna put me on a real path to, you know, becoming a real estate investor, like a full time real estate investor, because that's what I'm working towards, is having this be my main bread and butter. Obviously, I want to have different sources of income, but aircraft maintenance is not going to be one of them at some point, and probably in the next couple years. So that's why I'm making such a push to get, you know, another property, and do it quickly as well. Because the sooner I do that, my bad. The sooner I do that, the sooner I can get this, you know, this new kind of income coming in, and get better at it. I'm already getting better at remodeling, and making a very regular space feel extraordinary. So the better I get at that, the better I can get at finding better deals, and doing what I can to get the most out of those deals. So that's the name of the game. You know, buy it as low as you can, and add value as much as you can at, you know, immediately after buying it. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying to get good at. But I've talked more than enough today. I hope that you are enjoying a wonderful weekend. I also hope that you all know I this is something that I really came to the realization of maybe a couple years back, but every year I kind of reevaluated a little bit more. And, you know, I just have to realize, and I have to accept and embrace even, that I'm a sexuality coach, professional, uh, educator. You know, that's a part of who I am. It's a part of the gifts that I've been given. The gifts that I've been given are gifts of communication, compassion, and the ability to teach others about different things in a practical way that they'll understand. And in this case, it happens to be sex, because that's something that I'm passionate about. Um, and not just sex in general, but uh, very connected and close, and energetically energetically entwined sexual interaction is what I would say I specialize in. And so instead of running from, you know, my gift of being able to show people how to experience sex on